It's Super Videos back at you for another video. This is going to be my review and discussion of Season 7, Episode 3 of The Walking Dead, which was called The Cell. So, to start it off, the episode started a bit weird. Of course, it was different than what I thought, because I thought we were going to start from Daryl's perspective, but we ended up starting from Dwight's perspective, which was very interesting and odd at the same time. But the beginning was very weird, the music that was used, and the whole feeling of it was very odd, and it didn't feel like it was The Walking Dead. The music was basically reflecting what Daryl was going through. Of course, the music was actually playing, and it wasn't like a soundtrack for the episode. It was actually being played when Daryl was in his cell, and they were basically playing the music so Daryl wouldn't go to sleep, and so he would be disoriented and basically torturing him in that way. And of course, we saw naked Daryl, and for the fangirls, when they were saying they wanted a naked Daryl, they weren't expecting that. But going back to the music, it was just, in my opinion, also reminiscent of what Daryl was feeling at that moment and being disoriented. And then we have the part where Dwight is looking out at the walker alarm system that's outside the sanctuary, and we see he's looking at one specific walker who's on a pole and is kneeling, and that was also in the sneak peek. And what I see from that is basically Dwight seeing himself in that walker, and that he's kneeling down, he has no power, but if he had more strength, if he perhaps was more courageous, he could stand up if he wanted to. That's what I got from it. But there's one part where Dwight is taking Daryl. They're just walking, and then Negan walks by, and Dwight drags Daryl down and makes him kneel. And what I got from that is that he's trying to save Daryl from punishment. I could be wrong, but that's just the message I got. Then from there, we have a part where Dwight is taking Daryl to the doctor there, and then Sherry is there, but there's this pregnancy test thing there, and Sherry basically says it's negative, and Dwight is like, maybe next time. But that's very interesting, and nothing like that happened in the comics. I think they're going to explore that in another episode. Then from there, Dwight taking Daryl out into the fence area, putting on a jacket for him, and basically telling him you have three choices. You can be like them, like the prisoners out there. You can be like me. You can work for Negan and basically live like a king, or you can be like the walkers on the poles and basically be a dead man. And that comes into play with Negan's speech as well, which I'm going to come back to. Then we have the part where Negan is talking to Dwight, and he's basically telling him that he's hustling and he likes him because he's hustling and everything, and basically making fun of him, questioning whether he can perform down there, and bringing up the fact that Eugene bit him on the D, and that, he may not be able to perform that well anymore, which was pretty funny. It was a good callback as well. Then, of course, from there we have the person coming on the walkie and saying that there's a runaway, and basically Dwight going after the runaway. And then from there, of course, when Dwight is not there to look over the cell Daryl is in, there's another guy, and he forgets to lock the door, or it seems like that, but it's all a test. It's Negan's test, and Daryl basically wants to run away, and he tries to escape. That was a very intense scene. I loved that. It was very intense, and it was very eerie with the music and everything, so everything was very cool to see there. And then we have, of course, Sherry telling Daryl to go back while you can, and that it's not worth it. Even if you escape, you can never escape Negan, because he's going to find you. He knows where you are. He knows about your community, and it's not worth it. And basically Daryl doesn't listen, tries to get away, finds a motorcycle, and then tries to get on it, and then boom, you have all of the saviors coming out of the building and surrounding him. And of course we have the man of the hour, Negan himself, and I love the first thing he says as well, because it's a callback to his first entrance, and he says, "Are we pissing our pants yet?" And I love that. And at that moment, I just don't know what's going to happen. And in my head, I'm thinking, they're not going to kill Daryl off, are they? And then the other part of me is saying, maybe they are, I'm not sure. But it was very cool. That specific moment was very interesting. And then coming back, of course, we have Negan's speech about, three choices, which was also told to Daryl by Dwight as well, that you can be a dead man outside on the poles, you can work for me, or you can just rot in a cell. And basically, that whole speech was very epic, and I loved that. And it was the highlight of the episode for me, that speech Negan gave Daryl. The saviors are around, and then he says, "Who are you?" And then they all have to say Negan, and they're all Negan. And something like this happened in season 6 as well, where Maggie and Carol were taken captive by the saviors, and one of the saviors, the older woman, said, "We are all Negan." And it kind of points back to that, and it's like a callback to that. And it comes into play later on as well. And then through the speech, there was one part when he says, "You're lucky Lucille is not thirsty, but I am." And then there's a silence at that moment, and I'm thinking, what is he going to do? And he says, "I'm going to go get a drink because I'm thirsty." So that was very funny. Then when he's leaving, of course, the saviors kind of beat Daryl up or punish him for trying to escape. And we have Dwight going after the runaway. And then he is by the place at the bridge, which we saw in the teasers and the sneak peeks. And I thought there would be more to the bridge because, of course, in the comic book, there is a specific scene with that bridge and everything that has to do with some other important character. But we ended up not having that in this episode. And I think that may just have been a callback and an Easter egg rather than an actual scene that was going to happen in this episode. And Dwight was kind of killing off the walkers and trying to escape, so that was cool. And then he catches up to the runaway, and that's the second highlight of the episode for me. And he's basically telling the runaway, who is the savior who ran away, about going back and everything. And the person is saying that there's nothing out there for me. I'd rather be dead than go back, so just kill me. And basically Dwight doesn't want to do it, and then he ends up threatening him and saying that his family members or the people he loves are gonna end up dead if he continues like this. And of course the guy says, "Okay, you win, but there's nothing out there." And that moment, I think what's going through Dwight's head is, what can I do to help this guy, or what can I do to make things easier for me? So you can go either way. And then he ends up shooting the guy, and it's revealed how he shot him later on. I'm going to come back to that. So from there, we have him coming back and talking to Sherry about, making the right choice and everything. And to me, it sounds like it could be talking about what just happened with the runaway, but it could also be about them coming back to the saviors when they ran away. And we saw that at the start of season 6. So to me, it sounds like it could go either way, and there's really no way to know. But it was very interesting to see their dynamics, Sherry and Dwight, and kind of see their relationship there. And there's the part where Dwight tries to break Daryl and put the Polaroid of Glenn on the wall next to him. And when I saw that, I was like, oh crap, we predicted that was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to come from Dwight. Coming from Dwight, it just felt a little like it was dark, but at the same time, it felt like Dwight was doing it so Daryl would understand quicker and basically make it easier for Daryl to come to his senses and understand that there is no way. This is the only way. And it was very interesting. At the same time, it was very dark. I don't know if I would rather see that from another savior or Dwight. I think it was very interesting, to say the least, the way they did it with Dwight putting it on there. But that was just very interesting. And then at the end of the episode, we have Dwight taking Daryl to Negan, and then we have Negan basically telling Daryl, you have 3 choices, you have to choose. You can live like a king, or you can basically rot, or you can be a walker outside or whatever. And then basically telling Daryl about his and Dwight's situation, and how Dwight's super hot wife had this super hot sister who Negan wanted to be with, which is kind of weird because she was very young and Negan's very old, so that's very weird. And then Negan says Dwight came back, apologized, and I accepted his apology, but I wanted to kill him. But then Sherry, Dwight's wife, said, "I'll marry you if you don't kill Dwight." And of course, he reveals that he gave Dwight the iron punishment as opposed to just killing him. So that was interesting to, hear, and being a comic reader, it was very interesting as well to have that come into play on the show. I really wanted to see that happen with another character just like it does in the comic book, but I guess they're not going to do that, and I'm very surprised. They may do it later on, but I was really hoping that we would see it in this episode. And then we have Negan asking Daryl a very simple question and basically asking him, "Who are you?" And just waiting for an answer. And at that point, I'm like, if Daryl is courageous, he's going to just say Daryl. If he's smart, he's going to say Negan. So I was just waiting to see what Daryl is going to say. And then he ends up saying Daryl. And Negan looks super pissed at that moment. And basically, Dwight tries to save Daryl for a second, but Negan shuts it down immediately and says, it's not my problem that he made a bad decision. And basically, they take Daryl back to his cell and everything. Basically, what's going to happen is that Daryl's life is going to become so much worse because of that decision of saying his own name at that point. Now, I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to say. I'm just saying that it wasn't the smart thing to say. But there's something interesting that happened at that point, because as Daryl is in the cell, Dwight's leaving. Daryl stops him and says, I understand why you did it. I understand why you came back. You came back because of the person you love. And at that moment, it was like Daryl understood where Dwight was coming from and kind of connected with him to a degree. But then Daryl says, that's exactly why I couldn't do this, because of the people I love. I couldn't just say Negan and work for him. I couldn't kneel to Negan because of what happened to Glenn. I couldn't kneel to Negan because of what happened to Abraham. So that was very interesting in my opinion, and it was very satisfying. That specific dialogue was very satisfying to me. And then of course we have Dwight leaving, and then he goes out to the balcony and looks out, and there's the runaway as a walker who's now been basically chained to the fence. And at that point, it's revealed that Dwight shot him in the back. That's the point I don't understand. I don't get why Dwight wouldn't just kill the guy, why he would just shoot him in the back. But as far as this episode, I had more expectations of the episode. I wanted to see a bit more of the whole workings of the sanctuary, and maybe even how Negan lives, being the king that he thinks he is. But we didn't get any of that. We basically got a very low-level perspective of the sanctuary and basically how everyone at the prisoner level lives. And maybe a little bit more about the upper level with Dwight, but nothing about Negan and being at the top. So I wanted to see that, but we didn't get to see that. And I also wanted to see the iron treatment given to another member of the sanctuary, so we would see it come to life. And I wanted Daryl to witness it so that he would feel more connection to what Dwight went through, but we never got to see that, and I really wanted to see that. So as far as a rating for the episode, I would give it a mid-good rating. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect. It had a lot of slow parts at the beginning that should have been cut down, in my opinion, because it was just repeating. And there was a lot of moments where the music was playing and they were just throwing Daryl in and out of the cell, and they could easily take that out because it felt like once or twice would be enough for that. So because of that, I'm giving this a mid-good rating. But that's it for this review. Thanks for watching. I'll be back for another video.